Hey everybody, welcome to For the Record, a conversation series presented by Grey Matter where we talk to music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. Hey Maceo, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I think this
Abs-
conversation sounds like kind of my kind of jam. So,
cool. We hoped it would be. um, yeah, to kick things off, I always like to start at the beginning and just get a, sense of you, where you're from, where you grew up, and when your relationship with music started.
yeah, so Maceo Whatley. I'm based here in Philly. That's where I grew up as well. Um, my relationship with music, I would say, started really early. I was doing like tap dance and ballet and hip hop dance, like in like kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So I feel like I had like dance recitals that I can't remember in my life. And yeah, I feel like I've always kind of like bought my head to music since then. And yeah, now here I am.
Cool. Did you, like, grow up in a particularly music household? Like, how did you start dancing? What was, like, what was the impetus for that?
I feel like my parents I think my parents did like the idea of me dancing. I have an older sister and she also danced, and so I think there were some activities that I followed her into. Like we had like family friends who like ran a dance studio. Like I'm not the most clear exactly how it happened that came to be the case, but I ended up at dance practice here with people parents knew running everything. So that's like okay. And then I wouldn't say we were the most like I would say like radio was and I feel like when I was a kid, my parents used to put on like the seal like CD in the house.
Mhm.
But I feel like aside from that, I feel like there wasn't much music in the house, but in the car, the radio would always be on. We'd sync to the radio, and then I
Cool,
feel like yeah, yeah,
cool. I was talking about Seal yesterday.
oh yeah.
It's funny. I hadn't thought about him in a long time, and now he's come up twice in 2 days. Um, yeah, what a guy. Cool. So what I mean, aside from Seal, what other music was around you as a child?
What other music? I feel like my parents listened to like a lot of like the pop radio. I would say like we listen to like talk shows in the morning, and then you go to like like was it Maroon 5 or was it Taylor Swift or was it like Nickelback? I don't know. So I feel like that was a lot of like what we listened to in the car. My mom had like the Phantom of the Opera
Hmm.
like cassette in the car. It's interesting, but
Cool.
I think that was a lot of like growing up. To be honest, is like the really pop music, and then I feel like I got into middle school and I got more exposed to like hip hop stuff and R&B as well. But I feel like I really liked hip hop. Like I feel like I heard of Migos, I heard of Lil Wayne. I heard of Lil Wayne. I feel like in like when I was younger, when I was still dancing, like I heard the song Lollipop. My mom was like, "Turn it off." I was like, okay, well, like, what's going on here? I think there were better songs in the album. I wish I listened to the rest of the album. I think that was a large error in my youth. But yeah, I would say middle school is kind of when I started listening to more hip hop and listening to more music. Like I got Spotify on my laptop in like seventh grade,
Hmm.
and then it was like, wow, this is way better than YouTube.
Yeah, there's everything on here.
Yeah, like I've never heard of this. So I was like, okay, I don't need a video.
Cool. Um, and yeah, and then what happened after that? Like, what did you pursue as you're going, into middle school? Where were your interests carrying you into high school and beyond when you started to, join the workforce and think about art and music and the world at large?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really engage with music from like elementary school to middle school that much. I swam. I was in Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I played soccer. I played baseball. So I was like a super in stuff. Like I feel like my parents knew the people that did dancing, but like even if they didn't, I would have been doing something else. Like I feel like I
Mhm.
was always kind of like somewhere doing something under someone's supervision, and it is what it is. And I think like then going into middle school, I started at like a private school like downtown here in Philly, the Philadelphia school, and I did like a cappella there for seventh and eighth grade. And I like that. Like I think that was kind of like me starting to sing. And then in high school, like they had a choir, but I didn't do the choir. I like it was all you had to sing all gospel songs, and I was like, I'm definitely not gonna get in this like church choir. Like I don't know. I just couldn't see myself like enjoying it. Which I
Mhm.
would do what I'd done. I feel like I would have been. I think I'd be a better singer today, is what I'd have
Mm,
to say.
mm.
And I probably would have had a deeper social relationships with some people that were also on the choir thing. I think I was like playing a lot of video games and less quality time oriented. But yeah, I think like in high school though, like though I didn't do choir, I did get a lot more into music. I went to all boys boarding school. It was a school called Church Farm School, predominantly black and brown, and I think like there were kids from, and the mission was to provide young men from low income backgrounds a college prep education. One of my friends recently, he said, shouldn't all high schools be college prep schools? And I was like, that's an interesting take. They got me saying it here, like, boom, boom, boom. But what I was thinking is, in my high school, I got to know, like, I feel like a lot of different like scenes of hip hop. Like, a lot of kids from New York, and parts of New York, a lot of kids from Jersey. There were kids from Chicago, there were kids from St. Louis, kids from California, um, kids from across the world, as well, international students. So I think like that's really where I got into hip hop music, I would say, and I would say like very much to like New York hip hop.
Mm,
I would say that translates like a lot into what I listen like mostly New York, like Spotify Wrapped, and I live in like the Bronx last year.
mm,
And yeah, I feel like I didn't really think about working in music. Like people at my school would freestyle, and I like to do that. They'd spit like gay bars and say just like homoerotic things while they rapped, and some people get upset about it because they didn't like that,
mm,
which I think made it a little bit more fun. And I did that because I was amused at people being uncomfortable. And then I started to like rap more in college, like with my friends, like not so much in that vein. Um, and I thought about working in music, I would say more so after that. I was like, okay, I like really do enjoy this. And what would that look like? I studied psych and philosophy in undergrad. So there definitely wasn't like a strong like correlation to like career path. And so just trying to figure out all that out, it's kind of how I ended up in this Web3 space, which I feel sounds even more weird because it's like, what does that mean?
mm.
But just kind of like going from where I was at, what I was interested in at the time, which was kind of Web3 crypto stuff. And, how does this disrupt entertainment, media, music? I haven't really heard that conversation. And I feel like now I know more about this space than I don't know anything about the traditional music industry, still kind of how I feel. But it's cool. And I feel like music has kind of been I feel like hip hop's kind of been like the soundtrack to everything I've been doing, though. I feel like since high school, I'd really say. I feel like I was showing my girlfriend like Jay Critch and like some other New York like rappers over the weekend, and just like people that I'm excited about, and like I heard him in high school. It's like, who are people I'm so excited about from high school? And yeah, I feel like yes, I've been talking.
Cool. No, thanks for sharing. And yeah, I mean, I think we first encountered one another through Web3 something or other. I think, initially like the Emancipation Impact Network and like prison abolition stuff, but have seen your name in a lot of music related things as well. And um we had Sarah LaRue on here, I don't know, a few months ago at this point, and she recommended that you come on, the show as a fellow music head. And I think it was, stemmed from working together or collaborating via Water Music, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, and I'd love to hear more about, your involvement with Water Music, how you discovered it, the value that you found, that you found in the community. Because I think it's still one of the, most valuable resources, across the music industry, really.
Okay. How did I find Water Music? I think like that is how we connected, and I saw you writing. I think I reached out to you, or maybe something like that on Twitter, and maybe it wasn't their Discord, but yeah, Sarah, yeah. And how did I found them through, I think I was just online like senior year of college looking at like what are music related DAOs, like how to work in Web3 music, like finish this like super liberal arts degree, what's next, Web3 job, let's go.
Mhm.
And I had my podcast, We Them Niggas is my podcast, where I kind of wanted to help people learn about like this music Web3 space. I wanted to interview artists anyway. So I was like, okay, like, build my brand with your brand startup, but like, who is Maceo? What is We Them Niggas? Why would we do that? And we have no money to pay you. I feel like more the first than the last than the third, but I think also who is Maceo being the first one. So, um, but just kind of looking into what opportunities existed for me to kind of come into the space and either amplify what's happening or learn about what's happening. I think I just saw Water Music is really the only like kind of accessible place. It was like $200 for membership, $100 as a student, I think. And like you could pay, and then you have access to all the articles and stuff, which like when people talking about Web3, like in the writing, and there's people who work in Web3 and who work in music and the Discord. I'm like, okay, I feel like this could be a good way to network, kind of like, though I wasn't around anybody like this in college, just now an opportunity to kind of have an online summer that way. Um, and so I think I like emailed them and said I just graduated. Can I start like the student discount? And they said yeah. And so like I paid for my membership, and then I was like also aware I could like contribute to get paid somehow. And so I think I only ended up making like $100, but I was like, okay, like I think I made like $113, but it was like okay, $13 profit. But I think like really the friends I made along the way, as people say. is what the difference was. I think like going to their events in New York was super helpful to me, learning and just meeting people and getting like a better understanding of what people are thinking about like around media, like at their Future Wave conference or like some of the other events they've done in New York. And just being able to like sit, talk to Sherry, talk to Diana, talk to Kat, like when she came, like in the, I guess, was it for NFT.NYC question mark last year? I think like just, yeah, I'd say like finding that community was helpful because it helped me to meet older people who kind of worked around media and music, and have perspectives on it, which I kind of was saying earlier, I feel like I definitely lack. And though I
Mm,
didn't actually get their takes on the traditional music industry, I definitely got to see what problems they saw this technology solving or very clearly not solving. I think like the
mm,
NFT space is a lot of speculation, but not a lot of actually solving problems for creatives. I think like I do think Farcaster is kind of exciting. Like my NFTs, like nobody sees them like on Zora, but I'm like, oh, now I can just like share it on Farcaster, and there's like, immediately a Web3 native feed where people can mint it for free if I even boost it. I'm like, this is like a much easier to get to an audience than like what I've been trying to do, kind of posting on the like to the universe. Uh,
mm-hmm,
Essentially, I think this kind of does kind of organize that a little bit more, which I think is exciting. But I feel like I'm more like how many Freemans can I do, and just connect with people, and like maybe they like what they see and stuff like that, as opposed to like like mint out my collection of things. It's just like, let's vibe. And I think that yeah, I think like they were very clear that like this space wasn't really solving a lot of like long-standing issues right now. I think for me that was helpful to understand, but also to start to like answer what is exciting to me about this space, because I got to help with like their Web3 music, Web3 fan journey, I think is what the article was called, which Kristen Jewell
mm-hmm,
ran. And I usually just got to sit on interviews and help take notes. Like I didn't do any writing. I had some angst about writing, imposter syndrome. And so I was just like, okay, I'll be here. And I think that's why they didn't pay me very much, which is fine. But I think like I got to sit in on I felt like very timely interviews. I was like, look at me, like I'm the black guy here. I like that. So all the events, I'm like, I will be bringing this conversation to hip hop. So um,
Cool.
that's kind of like, yeah, I think what my value was. And I think coming out of that project, I feel like I had a really clear understanding of like who the artists were in that space, and why people collected stuff and what they saw the value prop as, and building meaningful relationships being much more so the case for people who were doing interviews with us than like price might go up. It's like people who are really interested in music, we're trying to support artists and saw that as the opportunity. And I
Mhm,
think like speculation kind of creates a fog that people even care about us, but I think like the more one-to-one relationships I think you build, like I think the more likely you are to find people that care. I think it's just like online, people aren't online to make, like they're online to make friends sometimes, but most of the time they're not, I feel like.
yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, it's really crucial that you have, like, the one-on-one connections to really, flesh out somebody when only are interacting with a digital avatar. Um, but yeah, no, I'm glad you found Water in Music. I think you say that you don't have much context on the traditional music industry, but I think what differentiates Water in Music is that it's really grounded in a very strong wherewithal of the traditional music industry. And Web3 is just one aspect that was a focus for a while, moved into AI. I mean, it's just like much more holistic, I think, than a lot of the projects are that engage with Web3. But yeah, I'm curious to you mentioned that these events in water music generally like helped to give you some more perspective on the industry that you wanted to take with you and bring to your podcast. And I'm curious, like, what those perspectives were, what those takeaways were, and how you've implemented how you're thinking about your podcast. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about where that is, and like who's been involved in that project, and how you're thinking about things differently now.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, right? Because Water Music, they were experimenting on being a DAO at the time. Like they went through Sears Club, which to me still like boggles my mind. I was like, oh, what was that time period? Like I feel like I arrived after that. But I think like even just doing that, I think Sherry's very forward thinking, very clearly. And so for me, that was like my first example of an in-person kind of DAO structure where like I'm seeing people occasionally for
Hmm.
in-person events, and not just that, but like and like I'm being kind of brought into a network of other people who seem to do the same thing, even though like it's not a very common phenomenon, for like DAOs to exist, and then for people to meet up, and like for everyday people, that's kind of my take.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so kind of having that be like my first model of that experience, like how do you start to coordinate that actually? I think definitely it very much applies to like how I'm trying to build an online community. It's like how do you create an online community where like people are so excited about each other that they want to show up somewhere in person. And like, how do you even like create that, like do that in a way that you can monetize, because now you have attention and stuff like that. And I think artists are really well positioned to actually be able to do that, like, oh, let's have like a meetup for like Playboi Carti fans in Detroit this weekend, if it's like somebody who's a fan is willing to organize it, and somebody's willing to pay them, and then you can get a sponsor for it. Then all of a sudden, like the artist has made money, even like potentially that fan has made money. I think you could redistribute some of that money back to the fans that showed up, even if you want to. They'll be like that, But you can also do other things, give away merch. Like I think there's a lot of new ways for artists to start thinking about how they monetize their attention offline. And I think that was a big takeaway for me, is like, how do you turn the online into the offline, and create more meaningful experiences? And I feel like that's even why I liked FWB Fest. Like last year I went to that, and I think like I have a proposal up right now to get some funding to go to ETH Denver, interview like people of color there, minorities, and help them speak about how they got into Web3 and stuff like that. And I'm super pumped for that. That'll kind of be the next project for my podcast. And I partner with 40 Acres DAO, who's focused on building self-sustaining communities of color using blockchain tech. And I'm very excited about where the podcast is, and I feel like I'm trying to expand and how do we become a media company, and kind of like I was saying before, like how do I start to build an online community that wants to transition into meaningful in-person experiences, where I can bring people of color from tech, people of color from entertainment, people of color from like social work, together, to have real conversations about how to start to move the needle on cultural progress and moral progress in ways that I think are important for the Black community. That's kind of like what's exciting to me right now, and I see this tech as being kind of like a faucet to finance a lot of that stuff, or even just start thinking about how do we start to create like meaningful tools to finance it. I feel like people stake and stuff, like people create value. I think, it's how can you create value using this tech that can be used to drive value into communities that I think aren't really receiving the value they might need right now. And I think water and music, beyond that, like I feel like I got to, like I said, learn a lot about the artists, and I feel like I had a lot of context as I reached out to them to interview them for my podcast. Like I wanted to help other artists. Like I feel like, okay, now I understand like how artists are making money in this space. Like I've seen big artists like Avenged Sevenfold, how are they doing and trying to onboard people, bridge the gap. But then you also have like new artists who are coming in and don't have any following, and they're building one-on-one relationships on Twitter Spaces, and letting that translate into ETH in their wallet. And for some people across the world, that's like way more money than for somebody like living in like New York City. I think it's cool to be able to understand that and see where your money can have the most impact. And I think it was kind of cool to see that, and also see like how patrons thought about that. And then, like I said, then going into conversations, actually trying to reach out to artists. Like, can I interview like Black Dave? I had him on my podcast early on. He was my first Web3 interview. And then I had JEDXO, another artist that I found online through Twitter. And then I've interviewed girls since then, and some founders. But I think really starting to understand, like how does this tech work and what are my takes? And then thinking about like, what do they agree with or disagree with, having been people experimenting already, kind of became like the dynamic from my conversations, which I thought was like a very unique viewpoint that I only had because I'd done the work with water and music to kind of cultivate my perspective.
Totally. Cool. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that is, I think why water and music has really positioned itself to be a foundation to help artists and founders and label owners and people elsewhere in the industry really understand the various machinations, and how we can use data and create more more transparent rails, so that artists can succeed and communities can succeed. Cool. I love that, and I love the way that you positioned, or like you have taken that experience and that context into your own projects. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like I've been able to kind of find people across the world and seen people. Like I have like Jed, who I mentioned, and then our community manager Baller Dan. He's based in Abuja, Nigeria, and Jed's in Lagos. But they met up in Lagos in like in December, which I was excited about. I'm like, look at that, people around the world meeting because of me.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like, I think like really the concrete ambition. I feel like these communities, these online communities, really become sustaining when people either, I think, find themselves in Web3 because of them, or they find themselves in meaningful relationships because of them. I think either one makes a big difference, but being able to trace that back to, a community or a group, I think, like makes them have more of an affinity towards it. There's already an appreciation. And so that's kind of where I'm aspiring to be. I feel like I have established myself when people can say that. And I'm like, okay, like then that's like then, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. Totally. Yeah. At the end of the day, these things are, provide like the connective tissue for us to, move closer in relationship and like deeper understanding and, whatever it is we're interested in.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I feel like especially coming into Web3, I feel like communities like that are so important. Like I was in Shark DAO before I was in like Water and Music, and they were like a nouns derivative kind of thing. But like people in there were talking about crypto, so I could ask questions. And that's because my college roommate. But I think like having spaces where you can start to ask your questions about the tech and this about things that might be over your head that you can't really abstract on. I
Hmm.
think like instead of having to go Google it and feel intimidated by the reading, it's like somebody can just break it down for you in a way that's accessible. I think like having 10 even people that can do that, I think is a huge asset. And
Totally.
trying to create that space for people of color, I feel like it's what I'm aspiring to do, like in my city, online, and ideally in other cities as well.
Cool. Amazing. I love that. Um, cool. So at this point, I'm going to transition a little bit into the what are you listening to half of the podcast.
Mhm.
And the first question is, how do you discover music?
How do I discover music? I feel like a lot of music I discover now is probably like on Instagram, to be honest, or YouTube. Like YouTube, like I don't know, like music videos on there, and so when it very doesn't always, but occasionally will. One second. But occasionally will like give me new stuff. But I would say like mostly like I listen to a lot of New York music. Like I said, there's this platform called On the Radar, and they like have different artists come up and freestyle. They used to always be freestyles. Now it's I think people just rap, and I'm not really a fan of that. I think it's like dumb. I got to kind of watch a music video. I wanted to hear how people freestyle. So I think that's impressive.
Mm.
It's not impressive to watch them say they're freestyling and not freestyle. It's like the opposite.
Fair.
But I would say like I look at a lot of like New York pages that are like kind of artist discovery oriented, like um, yeah, and so I'd say like mostly that to be honest, or like otherwise like Zane Lowe interviews I might see on YouTube or on Instagram, like or people posting on their stories, like or just being out in the world. I feel like out in the world is probably like a higher chance than anything else, but
Hmm. Cool. I'm curious when when you discover a song or a new artist on Instagram, like an Instagram story, do you make the effort to click through, go to their Spotify profile, listen to their music there? Like, do you convert to like deeper levels of engagement through that discovery?
so I think that's kind of like why I like I really am a big rap person. So I would say like there's like for from the block freestyles and for shooters only and on the radar, which I just mentioned. Those are I would say like three of like the major Instagram platforms I would say right now where you see like artists doing like maybe 30-second to minute performances,
Mm,
like it's like out in the world and the whole thing will be on YouTube, But I think like through those, I would say like I probably like looked at 10 people's Spotify or YouTube's, like out of maybe like 150 that I've seen over the last year, maybe 300, I don't know.
mm.
But I think like it's very accessible, like for 20 seconds, I can like see if I like these people or not.
Right.
When I think like sometimes like this guy, Lightz, Lihtz, he's from Philadelphia. Like, he just did one like 2 weeks ago that went super viral. Like he was at Timbaland's house like within like 3 days,
Oh,
and it's and it's cool. He's like rapping like kind of like introspectively about how he wants serenity and stuff like that. And I had the song on loop like the next day. I was like, I like this. So I
mm,
think it's cool to see people thinking about how they can bring like different like global subcultures online, and let attention curate them. Because I think like that for me
mm,
makes it easier. Like I don't have to sift through a bajillion things. Like in high school, I could do that, but like now I'm not going to do that.
hmm.
And
Yeah.
so just having like them there and I can be like, oh, I like this one, I like that one, and then like I think one of those artists I think ended up being like one of my like number one songs last year. Like so yeah.
Oh, I'm curious to hear like who that was, the artist in the song.
Her name is Shawnee Bonnie. That's her rap name. Uh, and the song was I think her second on the radar freestyle,
Hmm.
and she did freestyle. I like that obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess along those lines, like who are three artists of note, that you've heard for the first time in the past year-ish?
That I've heard for the first time in the past year ish. Three artists of note. Three artists of note. That I first discovered in the last year.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, more or less in the past year. It can be like, a year and a half, whatever.
I feel like I've been listening to this song, Libyanka People a lot. So I'll give Libyanka a shout out. I think. Another artist from the past. I feel like I make playlists and I listen to them like just incessantly, and then I'll just like add new songs and I like them, and then like my whole life is just kind of like a loop of that. Um, but I guess I've been like paying more attention in the last year to this producer J5. I feel like I hear him on like a lot of stuff, but I'm like, who is this man? Like, I feel like for at least a year I've been hearing his name, and like then I hear different artists. Like I don't know. I'm like, this guy seems to have a very strong presence, and I feel like I don't know what his face is. I don't
Hmm.
even know if it's a man. I feel like I assume it's a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so I would say J5, Bianca. I would say a third person in the last year. I listened to Central C, I guess over a year ago, but I would say Central C has he was like my number one artist last year,
Hmm.
and like I was really surprised. I listened to like all his albums, and I did like a lot of his stuff. I think his Dave album was kind of trash, like with
Hmm.
the but I think he has I think they both have a lot better music. Um, so yeah, I guess Central C's there, but I feel like Nux is another UK artist I'm a fan of, and
Hmm.
I would say maybe less Lars than Central C, and yeah,
Cool.
there we go.
Cool. Thank you. Um, okay. Do you if you remember, what is the first album that you ever purchased, and what is the most recent?
The first album I ever purchased. I think the first music I ever purchased might have been like "The Show Goes On" by Lupe Fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was my first like song on iTunes. I think my first music video might have been earlier. I think it was like a Fred Figglehorn music video, and he was like the YouTuber, or it also could have been a Phineas and Ferb like first season music video. So it's like one of those three things.
Hmm.
And my most recent music purchase, I think the last audio NFT I think was Girl's song maybe Ride or Die that came out like a month and a half ago on Sound XYZ. Uh yeah.
Cool. I think that's the first mint, like the first NFT that we've had mentioned as the most recent purchase. I haven't been asking this the entire series, but I think you're the first to name an NFT.
Yeah, well, I meant a lot of NFTs, so I tend to have money in my wallet. I'm like, that's not very much. I'm like, sure, you can have that. Like, I like
Yeah.
the song. Like, I'm for it.
Cool. Um, all right, cool. This is the big one. You're going to a desert island and you get to bring three records with you. What are they?
Wow. See, the thing is that it's a shame. I feel like people are gonna shame me because I'm not an album. I'm not a big album person.
Yeah, fair. Fair. I mean, the world has changed. It's not so much of an album place anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, and so I feel like a bit uncertain, but I feel like I would go with Donda. I feel like Donda. I feel like, in my opinion, like I think one of the most important hip hop albums we got in the last 5 years. Like I think Drake's been
Okay.
dropping stuff, but I think Game made a big statement. I think the album was very very impressive. And then he came out with, like a second version which had even twice as many songs. So definitely bringing that. I feel like
Hmm.
I got all types of vibes on there. I feel like younger Maceo. I don't feel like I would bring that. I feel like I could see myself bringing like Lil Uzi Vert verse no Lil Uzi Vert's album that came out in like 2021, 2020. I could see him. He came out with like kind of like a two-sided like project then as well. I could see like I'm only bringing two-sided projects, I think.
Yeah, yeah, fair. More music.
and and then I would probably say like Juice WRLD's first album, which is not two-sided, but I'd say was probably my three picks.
Okay, cool. What was the Lil Uzi Vert album? Do you remember the name of it?
Um, I can tell you, I haven't it's funny, he's not really on my playlist right now. But the Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2. Oh, that's funny. I wasn't that fun.
There's one called
Eternal Atake.
Pluto X Baby Pluto. Is that one? No.
Just Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2.
Oh, it's that one. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think
Cool.
Eternal Atake might be the two-sided one. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Cool. I like it. Um, cool. That's pretty much it. You made it through the ringer.
I appreciate
Uh,
that.
Yeah, I mean, for people who are listening, who want to get involved with the work that you're doing, check out the podcast or follow along anywhere else, what's the best place for them to do that?
Um, I mean, on Twitter, I'm Maceo Whatley or that nigga Maceo. On Instagram, I'm Maceo_D_Langston. I'm on Farcaster, I'm just Maceo. So if you're in any of those places, you're welcome to hit me up. I also have a link tree, which I think is just like We The Media, I think is link tree. So yeah, and I can send that over to you. But I really love to hear about, like you mentioned, like your abolition project. I'd like to hear about how that's been going. Like what's the yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's catch up after this, and like have a call for it because, yeah, stuff's moving, and I'll keep you posted, and I'll update you on that. I'll shoot you a note with some context, and we can find some time to chat about all that. It's happening.
That's exciting. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. And
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I mean, last question for you. Now that you've been, on For the Record, who else, what are the music head comes to mind that we should have on?
um, have you had CY on the show?
We have had CY. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta listen to it then. I've got a hmm. Have you had Athena on the show?
Have not had Athena on the show. I invited Athena, but she didn't want to do the recording stuff at
Okay.
this time. So
All right, all right, all right, all right. Third person, Maceo Whatley. Maceo Whatley. You know Jay Henny?
Chahani. No, I didn't think so.
I met him through Water Music as well. But I think I can send you his Discord. But I think he'd be a cool person.
Okay, cool. Noted.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, amazing. Maceo, this has been really great. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your energy and your thoughts and the work that you're doing. Yeah, and we'll find some time to catch up, on the prison abolition stuff for sure.
I like it. It sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Uh, Peace, everyone, and thanks, McKeegan, again. And nice to
Yep.
meet you, Mark.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Maceo.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.